So hi everyone, I'm Marius. I'm a software developer for SAP Fiori Elements for OData V2. I think that's important to mention. And together with OData V4, yes, sorry. That's even more important to mention, yes. And together with Holger from the UNIORG group, I have the honor to show you how you can unleash the power of SAP Fiori Elements, even for UI5 freestyle applications. And I will first start with kind of an introduction to show you and explain you what this even means and where you can find new additional information. And then Holger will show you a real-life application as a demo where he actually used this technology for a real customer. So I know that probably most of you are aware of SAP Fiori Elements by now. If you weren't before the UI5con, then you're at least now after the session yesterday and this morning. But I still want to recap the most important things to understand how we came here and how we got to Fiori freestyle applications. So in a nutshell, it's, as already said, all about development efficiency. You've already seen these points. Developers can focus on business logic, so the productivity really sharply increases. There's a point of UX consistency, because as the applications are not built by hand, but generated automatically, they're all done in the same way. They all follow guidelines. And also there's a degree of enterprise readiness, because the framework is used by hundreds of applications that work fine. And there are also some features like accessibility tool support, which are there out of the box and which are, of course, very crucial. So the way Fiori Elements does this is by providing those generic floor plans, basically templates for applications you can just pick and set up your application with. So whenever you find one of those floor plans which matches your use case, and they're actually designed in a way to cover most business needs, then you can directly get started without any line of code in the best case. So you might wonder now, how can I even configure the application, make sure that the correct data is displayed if I don't add a line of code? And the answer for this is OData, in our case, OData V4, and then services and annotations. So you basically just describe declarative metadata from which the Fiori Elements floor plans can automatically generate your application. So it's really the one you want to create. There are things like consumption hints, semantics, behavior, and other things you can just describe in this declarative way, and you don't have to code anything. In the best case, it should work out of the box. Of course, this cannot support all use cases because Fiori Elements, we can't think of anything you will ever do with UI5. So you can also use the already mentioned flexible programming model, which basically allows you to adapt some behavior, some look and feel, but also inject complete custom coding into the game. And when we look at this example right here, we see a lot of stuff is going on, of course, a lot of visualizations, but this is a Fiori Elements application with the list report and object page. And inspecting more closely, you see that a lot of custom elements are added here. For example, custom columns, custom header facets, custom sections, which are basically XML fragments. You can fill whatever you want to fill to visualize your data or do whatever you want. But there's also a custom page, which comes with its own pair of controller and view, just like in a freestyle application. So you can really do even more things here. You can do whatever you want to do. Right at the top corner, you also see a building block, which is the feature of Fiori Elements to extract some functionality from the floor plans, also to custom coding, because otherwise you would have the problem that you would have to code everything for yourself. So in this case, it's just simple actions for the flexible column layout, but also more complex things like the table or the filter bar would be able as building blocks. By the way, this application also shows you the flexible column layout in action. And I think yesterday we've already talked about this in some session, that it's actually quite complicated to code this in, sync all the models of the pages and so on. And using Fiori Elements, this is basically just one configuration setting, as we have seen. So this is already supported out of the box as well. So you can see that once you found the floor plan that matches your use case, it's very easy to add some annotations, to even inject custom coding, and you're ready to go. You have exactly the application that you need. But what if the standard floor plans do not fit? So usually you would have two different options. You could still commit to a floor plan, add a lot of custom extensions to make the floor plan yours. Or you could just go with UI5 freestyle, not use Fiori Elements at all, but of course you miss out on all the great capabilities Fiori Elements offers. So of course that's not perfect. So I'm very happy to tell you, and you've already heard that before, that you can also use both. So you can use freestyle together with Fiori Elements. It's actually not an either or, it's an and. You can do both. And the way this works is that you don't have to commit to any specific floor plans. You can just start with UI5 freestyle application. There are some minimal configuration changes we've also seen yesterday, and you can instantly profit from Fiori Elements capabilities like the flexible column layout or also navigation, which is configured out of the box that you don't have to do. The really amazing part about this is that you can grow as you go. So you don't have to add anything, use anything from Fiori elements. You can just build your application. But once you realize there's, for example, a table you want to have, a filter bar, the flexible column layout, you can just enable this, reuse this, and you're ready to go. So you're really, really flexible here. A good example of this grow as you go was already shown in the demo by Tobias yesterday. For those who haven't seen it, I really recommend watching it. If you want to see all of this in action, how this would work, he actually generated an application with open source tooling from scratch and added different Fiori elements capabilities to it, like the filter bar building block, the chart building block, or even the complete object page. But now probably you're wondering, how can I find more information about this? How can I get started? What kind of possibilities do I have here? What kind of building blocks are there? And for this, I want to show you the Flexible Programming Model Explorer, which is a showcase of all the features of the Flexible Programming Model. And with this, also different building blocks you can use. And this in a real application, so you can directly see how changes also reflect on the outcome, and you can even prototype here. So you can just find it at UI5.sap.com, if it wants us to. Then in the tools section, and here you already see the tile. And it also, again, mentioned it's for OData V4, as a flexible programming model is. So let's open this. And maybe, if I know the right shortcuts, increase the font a little bit. Yes. So we see we have a lot of different sections here which explain different things, like extension points, which can be used to extend the behavior or things of your floor plans, basically at those custom XML fragments. Then there are the building blocks, which are very interesting for us now, of course. Controller extensions to change behavior of Fiori elements controllers, and some advanced features I also want to hint at the end, but not yet. Let's quickly start with the extension points, because I just want you to get the concept if you haven't seen that yet. Basically, Fiori elements extensions are added in your manifest JSON file. And here you basically define a template. It's now, there's a line break in between, but you define a template, which is an XML fragment. And this is really this blank canvas. You can do whatever you want to do with it. You can add custom UI5 controls, standard UI5 controls, or building blocks, or anything else you will ever want to do. So let's jump directly to the building blocks, because we want to, we're interested in freestyle applications. And you see there are a lot of different functionalities which were extracted from the floor plans. I can't go through all of them, of course. And before we're able to use them, there's 3 small steps we have to do, and which are documented here. So this is, you've also seen at the demo from Tobias yesterday. Your UI component has to extend our op component. The navigation targets have to be wrapped in FPM targets, and your controllers also have to extend another class. But this is basically all you have to do. From that point on, you can use building blocks and all the great capabilities from Fiori elements. As a specific example, I want to again show the filter bar, which was also used by Tobias yesterday, because it's quite complex. You have different fields to filter properties of data you want to display. You have different types. You can have value help. You can something like a date picker. You can even adapt filters, so the end user can choose which kind of fields to display here. And this can also be directly persisted in the variant if variant management is enabled. So a lot of great features out of the box. I think you can easily see how this would take hundreds or even thousands of lines of code to do this manually. But with Fiori elements, if that's enabled, it's just this. So you just add the building block to your XML. You have a meta path, which defines where the declarative information lies in the OData service. Annotation, so of course, there has to be annotation somewhere, because somehow we need to know what should be displayed here. But that's all you need to do. You can add some handlers, some ID, but the meta path is the most important part. So that's very nice. As a second building block, which is very commonly used by us, especially in our object page, for example, is the field building block. Because you can very easily see how easy it is to use, and then also the concept behind it. So again, you just define a meta path, which is in this case just a property name. And Fiori elements is then able to find out from the OData V4 service what kind of data type this property has, what kind of annotations are connected. You can even add more configuration here, like a required property or some other settings. And all of this is taken into account to find out which actual UI5 control to use to display the data. So a field, or the building blocks, are actually not UI5 controls, but they are more like a set of templating instructions that are used to find out which UI5 control to use. those templating instructions, so this maybe magic, if you want to call it, or this processing, does not happen at runtime, but it happens at something we call the templating time, which is done at the first start of the application and then cached. So the really nice thing about this is at normal runtime, you don't have any performance penalty because you just use basic UI5 controls. This is also a major difference to the smart controls of OData V2, which are processing at runtime. But here at runtime, you don't see the building blocks at all. They resolve and you only have the actual UI5 controls. So once we've done this, let's look at some examples. We can have strings, numbers, booleans, dates, time. So a lot of different types, of course. But there are also the value helps, which are supported out of the box if they're configured, where you can select valid values from different entities. And there are even more advanced features like side effects, for example. I can change this. And you see that other fields also changed. And those are side effects. You can also define basically that different fields are connected. And if this data changes, also another set of data has to change. So all of this you can easily do with just using declarative information. By the way, if you want to try it on your own, this flexible programming model explorer, as I said, is running in a live application, but you can also change coding. So let's just change this checkbox text. And it automatically updates. So that's a really nice environment to prototype implementations, check how you can use the building blocks. Can I remove fields? Can I add something? And then you can download it into a project or copy it, and you are already able to go and start with building blocks. So I would really encourage you, if you're interested, just try to enable the application, have a look at all the different features here, see what you can do, and you will probably find something that will help you reducing your complexity. As a last point, which I also promised, I want to quickly look at the advanced features, which is kind of more elaborate documentation, also in this live running application, but of more complex features. Right now, we only describe the side effects here, but of course, new things might also come, so stay tuned. But the side effects are still already very interesting because, of course, somehow you have to define which kind of fields are connected and what should happen when something changes. And this is really a live environment where you can already see different options. For example, here you see it's actually coded, so it even works. So this is really nice if you want to dive into defining more complex side effects. So where does this leave us now? I want you to remember 3 very important things. SAP Fiori Elements also supports UI5 freestyle development without committing to floor plans. So it's not like if you want to use Fiori Elements, you have to have a list report, an object page, but you can really start completely UI5 freestyle without anything from Fiori Elements. So you can start small and grow as you go. The good thing is, once you have this enabled, whenever you find out you can reuse something, some page template, some building block, you can just do it. But you also don't have to if you don't want to. So you could even decide to remove the flexible programming model in Fiori Elements if you decide that you will never use anything of it. As you can see, we only had 3 small code changes, so you can really grow as you go. And as the last point, which is very dear to our hearts, is community. Community is very important for us. We really need your comments, your feedback, your use case, your ideas, because we want to make building blocks better for everyone, really, and add more and more functionality there. And in spirit of this, I want to pass over to Holger, who is a valued member of the community and actually used this technology and building blocks to build a real-world customer implementation. So the stage is yours.
Thank you, Marius. So I want to show you this today. Let me see where I can maybe hide here this. Is it the button for hiding this stuff? Okay, I will leave it this way. 2 years ago, I got the chance from the city to develop or to refactor the Webshop solution of the city of Zurich in Switzerland, which has gone live at the end of last year. And what we did with SAP, we enhanced, enriched this application using the flexible programming model and to benefit from the things Marius has shown and also Tobias yesterday. But I will start with let me start with a brief overview of the solution so that you get also a little bit around the technology stuff in the background. This site here, the BTP OData D, is public available, so I also collected some useful information for you. So if you want later on read along this stuff, you have the possibility to see this also in the system so far. So what we did for the city of Zurich, they had a formal solution implemented with WebDim for ABAP. So this was completely refactored using a multi-cloud approach. So we took the BTP, we took Azure, but the main service-driven part was now the on-premise system. We got a brand new S/4HANA system that we could use for developing the rep functionality using OData version 4. And the system landscape itself, that's why the reason why it took so much time is that we have to fulfill 5 integration projects to get everything working together. Because behind the system, the Webshop system in the front end, we have to connect multiple supplier systems that are mainly business suites. And there's some kind of material synchronization between the systems to make everything as fast as possible from the Webshop side. But we also have to drill down for order trackings or something like this to the business suite systems, where we maybe expect some latency. We have also take care of this. And starting with the project 2 years ago, the problem is the system itself was not available. And also OData version 4 was not, it was announced, but it was not available. It started with 2021 feature pack 1. So not to shift this stuff and to waste too much time, we thought about what about starting with a CAP project and doing the stuff with CAP, starting with the UI implementation. And then the idea was to switch over then to rep. So what we did is just using CAP for the mocking part. And we need some prototyping stuff. So together with ABAP wizard Christian Günther from Neo, together we created a proof of concept, if this would be a valuable approach. And luckily we figured out with some hassle that we are able to develop the same functionality in a CAP service. And finally, we have a one-to-one representation on the website. So we are also able, we're still using this for further development and change requests. So we can lively switch from the web service to the CAP service. And the nice stuff is for the UI developer. He has now a fully fledged development environment in his Visual Studio Code and can develop everything on the flight locally. So that's the technology behind this stuff, but let's join the solution so we can see what does it mean in detail. We have a public part, but in general, we have to log on to the solution. Thanks for the Azure identity providing stuff. We have multi-identity federation functionality for all the employees and different target types. So the employee has to choose which identity provider is related for him. And after this, you will be forwarded. Also, if you have an existing AD stuff, you do not need to log in anymore because then also some single sign-on stuff will be done under load. So at the end, so this couldn't be done out of the box with Fiori elements because there's some always marketing sales. They say maybe we should have such a solution that should look like Amazon or whatever. So it's not a good approach to just try to deliver just the Fiori elements application out of the box. So we had to do some fancy stuff around this thing. At the end, we have now the SAP UI5 completely designed freestyle application. We also started this way without thinking about using the flexible programming model. At the end, we have some sections where you see, okay, the stuff you generally know or are expecting from a shop. But luckily on the road, also SAP enhanced a little bit SAP UI5. So now we have the possibility to lazy load images and all this stuff that was implemented and made public in the meantime. Currently we're using the LTS version 1.9.6. So we have all these features that are in. We have this, we have a sticky header, so it should look, also scroll back to top and something like this. We have directly the possibilities to add information to the card side. Also at each point with the sticky header bar, the main actions are available and we can use it this way. But on some points, like drilling down, for example, into details, we have to go beyond the front-end server and call the corresponding business suite. So maybe there will be a delay. So we thought about everything, maybe above 1 or 200 milliseconds. We need something like a loading indicator. And luckily, SAP was doing something in the Fiori design called Placeholder, loading, some kind of skeleton approach. So, and we thought, okay, quite nice, there's something, so let's have a look under the hood. Somehow the guys in SAP so should have done something like this, and as a lazy developer. And luckily, we figured out that there is something we can simply reuse. So I'm just wrong. So let me see where it is. And here, also on this side, I documented this stuff a little bit because something is tricky, currently not really released or documented so far. So that's the idea why I also put this information here at a place. The base idea, so having a look into the core libraries of Fiori elements. There's a Fiori elements placeholder library that it's decoupling this part. And then we saw, okay, at the end, there are some HTML5 pages to quickly load this placeholder skeleton. It's just a plain HTML view, and it's using some CSS classes. And you will also find there's a placeholder less file, so you have the system is automatically loading some CSS classes. So at the end, you have the possibility to use this, where Fiori Elements internally is using this floor plans as placeholders for their solution automatically. But we wanted to adapt this here to our needs. So we had a look at this and get to know, okay, edit maybe some additional CSS styles. At the end, we had then this kind of view. But how should we connect the stuff here with the core of SAP UI5? And luckily, if you are sometimes watching the UI5ers, a year ago or longer, was a colleague showing things here that it's possible that this feature was moved from Fiori elements to the core of SAP UI5. If you have a look into your manifest file, in the routing targets, there's a now, I think currently not documented so far, but anyhow, there's a possibility of adding a section placeholder to it. And here you can add an additional HTML view for your for XML view that should be shown as a layer on top of your XML view, using as a placeholder till your view is rendered or data is loaded. By default, it would be auto-closed, but in this case, we want to control the stuff here. We want to see the placeholder. And if the data is loaded in the backend behind, asynchronized in OData version 4, then we want to hide this kind of placeholder. So, and that's also nicely available for us, because if you are on your route, you can get a reference to the target control. Somehow in your code, you would bind some OData, and there would be a data received event. And everything you have to do is, if you receive this event, then on the container, there's a hide placeholder API. So you just have to hide this kind of placeholder, and that's it. So at the moment, you have to do these things a little bit manually. So there are the 4 placeholder patterns for this floor plans. But in this case, what we want to do is here, it should look like our design in this case at this for this functionality. And we also use this for the forward tracking, because our kind of list report here is attaching the data right now from the front-end server. But if we drill down into the details, we also show this information directly with this kind of loading pattern before showing the data, and then we mimic the look and feel of the underlying object page. This is not the object page. There was yesterday also some discussions with web components and all this stuff. We, since our page is a long scrolling page, we are not, or we will not, or are not able to use controls that create their own vertical scroller. So for this case, we decided not to use object pages or some controls like this. And also finally, for performance reason, we have just using as many as planned controls to behave like a regular website. In this case, just using SAP UI5 with all the benefits of data binding and all this stuff with OData version 4. That's maybe more nice add-on cosmetic stuff, but the main benefit, or what we did so far on top of this functionality, was like we are starting with this functionality in a checkout process. Everything else from the shop here is can mainly done with plain functionality and freestyling out of the box. But if we come to the checkout process, especially with the complexity behind, we have multiple suppliers. Each supplier has different customers. There are server-side rules, what should be shown. This supplier needs this information. Another supplier will have additional information from his customer. And then we started with regular fields. We also created a custom field, but the development was growing. And luckily, together with SAP, we got the announcement that the flexible programming model, in this case, the building blocks will be public or made available also for customers, partners for freestyle development. That's quite nice because in OData version 4, the formerly smart fields were only available for OData version 2, and there was not something similar at the starting point for OData version 4. Now, with the stuff Marius had shown previously, we just have to use this kind of macros for the fields. So now we are able to just have some annotations for all this value helping stuff and all the things you need. And we only have one small line for the UI using this macro, and everything else will be done completely server driven. So now we have this nice stuff that we have the sold to parties and can select from this stuff. We have the possibility of choosing in between different things, and we will get the corresponding value help. And also, besides the value helping stuff with annotation, you generally also have interdependencies between these fields, and that's something Marius has shown at the end of this flexible programming model stuff, so-called side effects. So this can be nicely used to, without coding, to use this functionality. By default, you have to do the side effects programmatically in your controller coding. But now, if you are inside here for your, you have to do something like this, you can use this kind of side effects because the nice stuff is here. So if you are on your card side and there is maybe a source property sold to party, you can simply say, okay, if this sold to party is changed, I need to reread from the backend to ship to party. We are using virtual fields for field controls. We'll show this later on also a little bit. And then you can also say there are target entities. Maybe if you change the key of the ship to party, you will read the whole address of the corresponding ship to party. So this will be nicely done. We are just using annotation. So it decouples everything. So this can be done by the backend side developer and can also be decoupled from the UX guy who is implementing this on the UI side. You also need to know, because we had this layer from CAP for rep, so we're using starting quite easy. So this is quite nice doing this in CAP. But sadly, the guys on the other side, currently the side effects are not supported so far, and there are also some hassle stuff at the moment. But anyhow, it's possible to do this also for the website. But then you have to use local annotations and put this kind of coding, the teaching the side effect stuff here into a local annotation file. That's currently the way to go. It's also a little bit strange because if you're working on Eclipse and do some preview on your application, you will see the application, but this is some, for Fiori elements especially, some core functionality stuff, and then you have to switch over to GIS or whatever to preview application to see this side effect stuff working completely on your side. And just to annotate this, here's also something called dynamic expressions. This is also something fancy stuff coming from the CAP community, where you can have some logic styles that will be evaluated on client side. And also that was interesting for the web guys that also try to implement everything in ABAP, that you can do this same stuff also with declarative approaches, things even in your annotations if you want. So, but you can read more about this if you're interested in this. Besides this, also on head level, we can use also this stuff on item level. The problem just, let's see this stuff here. So I will switch over because on the dev I have not the relevant observations, but anyhow, as formerly told, no problem, because there's also the possibility to call this stuff in a mock modus. So now I'm here on my using the same UI with the web service, and then here I have some more fields, also something from the lab, and here I have some more examples from the field control things that's possible on sales order item level. Here you can also see using field control, you can say, okay, this should be mandatory. There should be something used only as read only. You will have the general functionality using the advanced value helping stuff for these things. But anyhow, even that's quite nice, because even if you know this information, you can also then use this type as a go stuff and use this for value helping things. Till this point, we also had done this formally with our controls, but to be honest, at some point where they also asked to see the keys and the text and all this stuff, that was getting quite complex. And at this point, we were quite lucky that all this thing, we do not want to reinvent the wheel for everything. So we were able to just use this building blocks for being able to use just the whole set. And even if you have a web service or CAP, you get all the power, you have all the virtual data models that will deliver for you this kind of value helping things. And this made it quite fast and agile for you to develop such things where you have to use heavy functionality from an S4 system behind the system so far. And that's maybe that's the more important stuff so far here. So what we will do next is, we have seen this on our order side. We have also something here like our possibility like a filter bar. At the moment, we are running on 196. The custom fields that's currently available with 1.101 or something else. Currently, some missing API stuff will come with 1.104. So we are working together with SAP to enrich this stuff so that we are able to use our own kind of filter bar plan where we have it handled a little bit differently. So we want to here by default use Google-like search on the top of this bar, and maybe to see that we have some use filters. And then we have this additional fancy stuff. And that I think with the next LTS release, we have replaced this stuff here with completely using the filter bar. So then we would also have this nice button next by where we can select additional fields and add it to this stuff. And we can remove all our custom controlling things so that we are more and more using the standard. And that's then the idea with the things so far. So let me switch over to my, so what we get to know from this side. Oops. So what did we, or what are the benefits, or what we learned in this project? We are using the flexible programming model, and this Masiki helped us by using the building blocks. It makes very easy to use this kind of value helps, and especially in conjunction with side effects, this is quite nice. And even if you working also with Fiori elements and this stuff, you can reuse your knowledge, and it works the same way on your freestyle application side. At the starting point, I was thinking about the SAP UI MDC controls that are currently not released yet, and I thought this would be the replacement of the former smart fields. But then I get to know, because at this moment nobody was talking about this and haven't seen this so far, that this macro stuff, the building blocks, is in general the stuff what I really need with the annotation support below. And then finally, so therefore, from my side, there's currently no need using the MDC controls directly. So the building blocks in generally are the relevant stuff that is the successor of the smart control, I would say. Also, if you start and are used to work with OData version 2, then OData version 4, you have to expect some time for the learning curve, because somehow I think it's quite easy to migrate your knowledge, but at the end, a lot of stuff is no more available as an API. You have to do everything mostly the context binding way, and this is something different. And also in version 4, there are a lot of new features like aggregation functionality, BI-like, and there's also maybe some place where you can benefit from this, and then you have to rethink your kind of design flow or workflow, how you are used to work with OData. The Cat2Web prototyping stuff is quite interesting for us. We are still using it for nearly all projects at the moment because it massively speeds up the development things for a developer, especially if you have a UX full stack developer on the other side and maybe then an ABAP developer on the other side, especially for solutions where we have to develop codes or services for business suite customers where we only have a gateway. At the end, you have to do 5 times the overhead to implement the same stuff on the gateway side. But here with CAP, you can quickly do prototypes, mock CRs. And if the customer is, if this is okay for the customer, then you can forward this CDS just to the ABAP developer. That massively speeds up the workflow for new innovations and developing things, especially if you have to support also the old school, older systems on the other side. And as said before, from the Outlook side, we will see what else can be used from the building block perspective. And mainly the next step, what we will do today is using the filter bar building block design pattern that would, where we can benefit from some additional nice fancy stuff. And I think from my side, that's it. Only hope we have some more time, 10 minutes now for some questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Holger and Marius. I'm sure there are some questions after this, this interesting talk. And we do have a first one here. What's the UI5 version requirement for flexible programming model?
Maybe you can answer this.
Yeah, I actually don't have the version you need by hand. I think we can clarify that afterwards if you don't know.
On our side, we are using 1.96 because we are working on using the LTS version that's currently available with SAP UI5, and some parts of filter bar would also be available, but the custom fields or something like this is coming in newer releases. So you have to, yeah, it depends on your needs. So you have to see what you will use from the building blocks, and some features are available quite early, and some newer stuff will be maybe coming up next, I think, with your releases.
Yeah, and of course, there's still a lot of innovation going on, so there will come a lot of more in the new versions as well.
Next question here. Are the macros or building blocks available in OpenUI5 as well?
They are part of SAP Fiori elements, so it's my understanding they're also part of SAP UI5.
And here we have another one. What's the effort to build something like this, roughly?
What's the effort? Okay, in general, we need this functionality, and using the cloud or the multi-cloud approach, we have now the possibility to create services that work together with C4, Salesforce, and all this stuff around. And the effort is we have a lot of stuff natively integrated into the S4 system, and we mainly benefit from the virtual data model, this value helping things. So we do not have to develop everything like this by our own. I think that's the main effort to be able to use this. You have the theme designer runtime, you get everything compiled in the cloud. So it's very nice from the maintenance point of view that you are not responsible as a partner or customer, can create tickets if something goes wrong. And that's a nice thing from why we choose this technology.
And the next question, can we expect more floor plans to be available in SAP Fiori elements?
So this is also something I, of course, cannot answer definitely as a developer. I don't know of any plans at the moment to add more, because they're really designed to already cover most of the business needs. And about future plans, of course, I can't really comment that much.
Okay. And next question. Why did you choose the Blob storage inside Azure instead of the document service / object store in the BTP?
That's a good question. In our solution internally for our Dina Commerce, what we are offering as a software as a service solution, we use this object store. In this solution, in the SAP systems, this is co-working with SAP. They're using the Lean Catalog management tool. And the link catalog management tool is storing their information inside the document info system in the SAP itself. And this tool is available in all supplier systems. And then we have this nice e-card tooling stuff in between, so that the shop just reaches the front-end server, but all business suite systems of the supplier synchronizing their document info system images and attachments with the Azure Blob storage. And there was and this infrastructure was nicely and supported available. And using it this way, we can just use this Blob storage on the other side, but also Azure is also one of the main cloud strategies for the city of Zurich that should be used. So we have not always the freedom of choose. Something was done forced from the customer side, and that's the final solution, how we implemented this.
All right. Are there any questions here from the audience, from the room? Anybody?
I don't have a question. I just want to throw and catch the microphone. Jokes aside. Holger, you are using obviously purely V4 OData services.
Yes.
Was there any functionality or feature missing that you might know from V2 that you don't have in V4?
Missing, not because I was working closely together with SAP, and thanks to Matthias Ullmann, we also got some feature requests that find their way into OData version 4, like directly binding $count and something like this. No, at the end, not. And also starting with the ramp up for Fiori elements, we get to be using OData version 4. And then if you're doing more and more things with OData version 4, then finally you do not want to go back and use OData version 2 anymore. So currently there's nothing I would say that it's missing. And the only thing that was missing was fulfilled now with the building blocks to be able to get this kind of smart fields that makes the life of a developer much more easier for all this fancy stuff that is automatically generated in the back end using this annotation stuff.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Yes.
Marius, you showed us a great FBM Explorer, and if I understood correctly, it's also part of the UI5 delivery, so I can technically go on UI5.zap.com and also pick a specific version and then look at the FBM Explorer, and then I will know what FBM features I have in the current version that I want to use, correct?
Yeah.
Perfect.
Right.
And then there was also, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to say, because it's bundled together with the version, you can directly see what is supported in that version. Yeah.
Perfect. And the other one was about OpenUI5. So if I remember correctly, the building blocks are part of OpenFE, and OpenFE you can use nicely together with OpenUI5. Therefore, the question earlier, I think, could be answered with yes, it's possible to work with the building blocks in OpenUI5.
Okay, thanks for the correction.
No, it was just a question, so it works, right?
It is, yes.
Thank you.
Regarding the OData model V4, will there be an option to make custom requests without list bindings or context bindings like we have today in V2?
I think this is actually rather a question for the OData model. Honestly, I have to say I can't answer that right now. Probably you can contact us afterwards and we can try to find it out.
Yeah, I think it's really a missing feature at the moment.
Yeah, but again, with roadmaps, I would be very careful at this point of time to say anything.
Anyone else?
Okay, I think we're pretty much out of time, so let's just give another big hand to Holger.